Good afternoon, everyone. I must apologize. I have a very bad throat, too much mentoring and pitching sessions yesterday. So I've been running a temperature for 2 days, but I don't want to miss this opportunity of sitting and listening to some fantastic ideas. I'm not going to introduce the various speakers in this session, but I would request each of them to introduce themselves and probably also talk about innovation in their own respective organizations. We will do this panel in 3 waves. So it's largely 3 questions that we are looking at. And the first question is about how is innovation becoming vital in their own respective organizations? And what is perhaps one concrete example of innovation that that they can share with us, and considering that there are lots of startups here as well. So if you can take the mics as well. We'll start with you, Ashish.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ashish Chinthal. I work for a company called Napino Digital Solutions. Not many of you would know about this company. We are essentially one of the leading electronics manufacturing company in the country. We started about 25 years back, and we've done a lot of work in the electronics for automotive industry. But since last 5 years, we've ventured into the area of IoT, medical electronics, consumer electronics, wearables. And the idea is to take the issue that we as a country are facing, right? Electronics manufacturing. Today, everything gets manufactured pretty much in China. When we talk about electronics manufacturing, we all look at China. But the fact is, last year, we manufactured more than 25 million units in just 1 year. So, and the area is just not automotive. It is, as I said, consumer electronics, it is medical electronics, it is ultraviolet-based water purification device. So the range is huge. And to your question on how we rely on innovation, now we do a lot of innovation in-house, but we also rely on innovation from startups, because we as a manufacturing company are dependent on the R&D that happens among our partners, and we then manufacture those products at mass scale. So yes, to answer your question, our dependency on the R&D is on the startups who do innovation, and we also do a bit of innovation in-house. But because our area is so wide, ranging from automotive to several consumer electronics to logistics to robotics to drones, we rely on the R&D side of things. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for staying back and not grabbing lunch. The organizers were kind enough to announce lunch just before this session. But I'm glad that all of you are still here, choosing us, listening to us, interacting with us over your lunch. My name is Abhay Tandon. I head digital innovation globally for TVS Motor Company and 9 other group companies. And innovation for us, whenever I hear this question, it's just let me share this perspective, right? There's nothing new in innovation when it comes to TVS, right? I mean, and I think all my fellow panelists would also say the same. Working with startups has been going on for a while, but then core engineering R&D is something which is pretty much a part of the culture, right? Have you seen any of our TVS bikes on fire? That says it all, right? None of our new EVs that we have launched in the market are on fire, right? And that's primarily because engineering, R&D are core aspects of what we do at TVS. And it's because of that the innate nature or the DNA itself is to continuously innovate and bring to our customers something more meaningful. We are the 4th largest two-wheeler player in the world today, right? With presence in 86 plus countries and an 8% global market share. And when you need to continue grow from there, right, when you've already raised the bar in some senses of it, then you need to look at both internal and external innovation, and we've been doing that for a while. We've been partnering with a lot of startups, academic institutions globally. We've also been acquiring a lot of startups and investing in a lot of startups across the globe, right? And perspective or perception about TVS Motor Company is that we are an automotive manufacturer, automotive company, but we are way beyond that. We recently invested about 8-10 months back in Rapido, which was a very soft, clear signal to the world that we are not an automotive player, but a mobility player, and we'll continue to build inroads around that, right? And there are more products in the market that are going to hit soon. And when we look at innovation, right, there are multiple layers of innovation that we look at. Of course, there's incremental and there's disruptive. You just spoke about drones and a lot of other such emerging tech, right, which is amazing. That is what we classify as disruptive tech, right, which is really disrupting either automotive mobility or beyond. And then, of course, there's incremental solutions, which will be innovation in point A to point B in supply chain and logistics, or probably even in operational efficiencies within the organization. So we cater to all of them and happy to explore more.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me here. I'm Vinoth, and I lead the mobility-related research and development activities at Hitachi India R&D Center, Bangalore. Talking briefly about my organization, I think Hitachi, the places where it is visible, I think air conditioning, construction machinery, that is what you know of, but it does a whole lot of more things, right from bullet trains to power grids. I think it's a $80 billion company, 110 years old, and about 3.5 lakh employees all over consolidated. So it's a big company, and if you, there is a point in time in the past, it was also a startup, like 1910, when it made a 5 horsepower induction motor to start with, and then progressively over decades, supercomputers, train control, and whatnot. So there is a journey. I think all of it was based on innovation also. So there is a very big push even today on innovation and the way we have it. And because I take care of the mobility, I think as Abhay also mentioned, I'd like to briefly cite, there is, connected. Connected is a very important use case. If you were to go, some of the technologies we don't know, we are using it already. You have to go from here to Trivandrum Airport. I think there are so many uncertainties in terms of traffic, in terms of flight delays. All of it gets communicated to you through SMS, through the maps, through traffic. I think this is technology. And similarly, I think even autonomous, there are already, cruise control, auto, kind of things. But going forward, more and more autonomy to make your drive safe. So there is scope there. Electrification, I think this property just adjacent uses a buggy. It's electric. I think, you would wonder what if the buggy stops on the way. It needs to be, well planned. The charge capacity should be sufficient to take you the entire way, and charging time should be minimum so that it is utilized more. So there is technology everywhere. I think digital, material, product-wise, so there's endless scope. Thank you.
Thanks, Vinod. Diana.
Yeah. Thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Sure.
Good afternoon, everyone. It gives me a lot of pleasure to be here. It's an absolutely wonderful day, specifically because this is my hometown. I feel so proud that it's happening in Kerala. It's happening in Thiruvananthapuram. But most importantly, first of all, I'm from Dell Technologies. We recently concluded an MOU with Kerala Startup Mission, KSIM. So it makes me really, really happy. And this is the first state partnership that we have on startups that Dell has actually signed. So again, a momentous occasion. Now, to answer your question, Rajesh, innovation, is it becoming relevant? Well, it's been in our DNA, Dell's DNA from the very beginning. It wasn't just innovation in products or services that we were rendering, but it was innovation in business itself, because of which we have a massive R&D setup in the US, and the second largest R&D center that we have outside of the US globally is actually in India. We have centers of excellence, about 4 at least, where we look at everything from products to services to workplace transformation. So to give you an example, even before COVID, we were talking about hybrid work culture, right? We are constantly innovating on data, security, products, of course, you all know probably more than I would. But yes, that's what we are engaged in. Constant learning, continuous learning is what we emphasize on, and of course quality. For that, we have a lot of enabling mechanisms within the company itself. We have a learning academy. Some of our team members at a point of time wanted to learn more about AI, so they established an AI academy within the company itself. We have an India Innovation Forum, which is similar to a pitch sort of arena, where anytime our technical experts want to sort of figure out a solution, they are able to tap into the resources and take that idea from that ideation stage to the implementation stage. So innovation has been absolutely integral and key. And two, because of we're talking about startups, we're talking about ecosystem. Let me tell you, one of the things that we as a company, and I'm sure a lot of other companies across the world have realized, we work with the ecosystem, we work with partners, and not just startups, the SMEs, the MSMEs, we're talking about government and a lot of other stakeholders too, and it's an ecosystem we build together. So thank you.
Thanks. So let me add what Ernst & Young, where I work, what we do on innovation here. We have a global innovation center in Kerala, and we employ 10,000 people in Kerala between Kochi and Trivandrum. And what we do as part of innovation here is we have a center of excellence for analytics, we have a center of excellence for machine learning, we have a center of excellence for sustainability, and all these cater to Ernst & Young worldwide. So a lot of basic fundamental research in these areas happen in Kerala. So that's been a very interesting experience that we've had in Kerala. For the next row of questions, the next question I want to ask them was, how are they using startups to scale up their respective innovations? Are you using startups, or is there a plan to use startups for your innovations?
Yeah, of course. So, as I said in the introduction section, right, we are a manufacturing company, and we rely on various startups to do the initial innovation. And it's not that we are completely dependent on them. We try to create a win-win situation. So we help startups that once they come up with a prototype, we help them to take that to building a sample unit, which is visually appealing, which has much more features, which has got elements such as design changes, which from a manufacturability perspective, from a testing perspective, from an assembly perspective. So we help startups to take their prototype to all the way to mass scale manufacturing. And with that, we are helping them grow in improving their product, number one, and we also do help them in the area of go-to-market strategy or carrying out business development, because we have our own connects in the Western markets, we have our own business development teams. So it's a win-win kind of situation that we try to create for startups, right? We help them improve their product, we help them drive and expand their business development activity, and help them scaling up in terms of volumes, in terms of revenues that they can drive out of it. And one more key example that I want to give is a story, right? So if you look at all our water purification devices in our house, they are all traditional candle-based, but there is an ultraviolet-based water purification which has got much better properties in terms of keeping the nutrients level high after the water purification activity is done. So there was this company based out of North America region, and they were getting this manufacturing done in China, and they said, hey, I want to enter the Indian market, and this is really a social cause that so many people in our country do not have access to clean drinking water. Can you help us? Can we collaborate together, have the design improvement, and have a product which is designed for cost, right? design is not just innovation, adding more features, but there's design for cost, design for supply chain, so that you are able to build the product at the right time. You are able to have a very good lead time so that you can go to market very quickly. So we collaboratively work with them and we launch that product. And I'm happy to say that today we are already building several thousands of units, and some of the larger water purification companies are in talks, and the units are going to be in millions. So that's a case study that I want to talk about.
Yeah, Abhay.
So let me take a step back before we talk about working with startups, right? When we talk about corporate innovation, first thing that you need to think about is, and understand is that corporates, or many corporates, are high-headed, right? They have a perception that they have everything that it takes to solve for every problem, and that's not necessarily the case, right? Many corporates feel that. And they can have 1 lakh people, 3 lakh, 5 lakh, 10 lakh people, right? But there are lots of people outside of their organization who are still trying to solve for various problems. And that is where collaborative efforts come in, right, to solve for problems. And this is where it is not just restricted. I mean, there are different form factors in which you look at partners, right? One of them are startups, obviously. They could be MSMEs as well. They could be academic institutions. They could be loosely held innovators as well, right? And you partner with different kinds of partners to solve for different kind of problems, sometimes multiple partners to solve the same problem as well, right? In terms of pieces of problems. And that is where the distribution happens, and across incremental and disruptive. And the maturity curve, and where you lie on the maturity curve of innovation in the organization and the ecosystem, right? You can probably start off by saying something like, hey, listen, I'm trying to set up an accelerator or an incubator because that's what we are best at, or that is the kind of need that we have, to all the way into investments, acquisitions, and IP sharing and co-development, and so on and so forth, right? So different models across the maturity curve that you take. Now, when it comes to startups, and in case of TVS, of course, we've partnered with more than 80 odd startups across the last 4-5 years, right? In different kind of projects, both incremental, disruptive as well, and developed IP, shared IP in many cases. Sometimes it's the startup's IP which is plugged in to TVS, sometimes it's TVS's IP and which is working in partnership with the startups to distribute it more effectively, right? So the different models in which we have partnered, and we'll continue to do so. But that is one sort of partnership, right? The other sort of partnership is that we have also acquired a lot of startups, large companies as well, which are now part of TVS family, and now plugging that together is making much more sense in terms of how do we provide that convenience and the different form factors to our consumers in terms of what they're looking at solving for. And the third is investments, where we're taking early chances on early stage startups to slightly more mature startups as well, and seeing how that corpus of investment that goes into the startup creates a solid synergy between the startup and the corporate to co-develop more meaningful solutions. So there are multiple models that we have also taken, and we continue to do so.
Thanks, Vinoth.
Yeah, thank you. So about partnering with startups, the way I would like to answer is, I think no company would have indefinite resources, human capital, or even the reach to the market. So there are two distinct ways again here. So one is through corporate venturing offices, which most companies have. I mean, Hitachi also has one such global entity, which is actively looking at corporate venturing and startups, investment into startups. The other way to answer this question is I would like to look at the supply chain viewpoint. So where does a company, a big corporate, look at itself in the supply chain? So let's take an example. Suppose if there are gaps in the upstream part. So you need a lot of technologies, because these days customers just don't want point solution. They want an entire system which has many applications. And to give you an example, let's say smart cities is one concrete example. So when you're offering the solution to any city, you would have surveillance, you would have traffic control, you would have parking, water, waste management. So I mean, one way is let's do everything together. I mean, everything in-house, but that is so inefficient. And you need speed to deliver, right? So upstream, you try to partner with startups who have very good point solutions, and then kind of offer this together as a collaborative. So that's one way. The other way is when the gaps are in downstream. So because you have some technologies, horizontals and things like that, but you necessarily don't have bandwidth to engage with the end customer. Because again, I would like to take an example. Agriculture is one such space. There is a lot of regional, points to it. So you cannot understand the pain points of all the end consumers, which are very crucial to formulate a solution. So there are many startups. I think in KSUM too, we have been collaborating with KSUM in this area. So we have some technologies upstream, but we want to kind of find right kind of partners in the startup space to kind of have the entire offering. So these are the ways I think we engage. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajesh. To answer your question, we engage with startups at different level. To begin with, we have the Dell for Startup program itself, where one of the aspects is that we do something called a tech teardown. So especially the tech startups who are out there, we do a prognosis or a diagnosis of their entire infrastructure stack, what is out there, looking at their servers and storage options, looking at security, looking at data and anything else that's essentially required. And of course, we give them different options and ideas, how that will help them scale up and of course, save costs. So that's one of the things we do. Second thing we do is also mentorship in various areas, because there is expertise, in-house expertise that we have. And the third thing is, if you have solutions or apps that you want to run on Dell infrastructure, that's also an arrangement that we've worked on. That can be, and us, along with the startups, we can actually present it and give you access to a lot of our enterprise clients as well. We call it the Enterprise Connect program. And a couple of examples that I can give of startups who've benefited from it, beginning with PhonePe. We were their strategic partners from day one. We helped them design their own infrastructure, a robust, scalable processor platform itself, whereby in the next 5 years, they'll be able to save about 75 crores. There are two other edtech startups, for example, who actually were able to build their solutions on Dell infrastructure. And of course, this was done, in partnership, in the kind of expertise we would draw from each other. And they were also able to bring on board about 700 plus clients, the Dell enterprise clients, for their business story and journey, right? So these are some of the examples that I can give of startups who are benefiting from the program itself. The second way that we engage with the ecosystem, and it's not just the startups, we try to bring in the ecosystem itself, is the investor community. So the more we see, the cost effectiveness, or we're able to help scale up the startups, of course, it's beneficial for the investors as well. Plus, there is a connected network that we can actually bring to both the startups and the investors also, with, of course, a lot of, there's credibility as well. So that's the other thing we do. The third thing is in the ecosystem, and I'm so glad there was a panel before us. It was the government panel, and what government and the linkages between government and startup. That's the other thing we also work on. We engage with the government, we engage with industry bodies. So every time, startups, our network of startups have issues or policy-related matters, we present it before the government as well. And the fourth thing is that plug-in alliance. We again bring in other corporates on board, other partners like IITB, GitHub, etc. And of course, I can't help mention the MOU that we've signed with KSUM. But again, there are about 200 incubators and accelerators in the country, in India, right? So we're trying to also reach out to the incubators, because they have a larger network of startups who will be able to benefit from these programs that Dell has. So that's essentially how we engage with the community. Thank you.
Thanks. For the last question, so there are lots of startups here. Some of them are having lunch right now. What is your message to some of these startups? How do they approach you? And how should they be prepared? Should they have an idea already and they come to you? Or should they come to solve problems? I can give you one example, what EY does here. We try to do some of these hackathons. And we did a climathon last month. And we wanted a lot of ideas on sustainability and waste management, not just for Kerala, but also for India as a country. And we were looking for bright ideas which we could incorporate in our own solutions. So in your respective companies, any tips for the startups sitting out here on how they should approach you? Should they come with an idea, or should they come with an open mind saying that are there problems here that we can pick up, etc.?
Yeah, I can share a few tips, definitely. So when I was working in my previous company, Airtel, I was driving partnership. I did partnership with some startups. I also did partnership with very large global internet-based companies, some of the top 4, I don't need to name them. And now also we work with a lot of startups. So what essentially will stand out is idea is one thing, research is one thing, but when you pitch us, you should be able to have a compelling story on why you are approaching us, number one. And if we agree to work together, it could be in the 2 areas. It could be either driving business for us, or it could be a partnership, joint go-to-market or something. But whatever it is, what you should think in mind is what is in it for the corporate whom you are approaching. So if you are able to explain that well, that, hey, you have a commercial benefit. Hey, this will make your life simpler. This will also help you expand your market. What are those 2-3 things? Those are going to be beneficial to the party that you are approaching. If you are able to distill that well and have that clarified very quickly, then I'm sure you have an easy way through.
So now I see more people getting back into the room. I'm hopeful that that's because maybe some of the prominent investors are back in the room, or maybe people do want to work with us as corporates, right? But if the latter is the case also, then there are multiple ways in which you can do that, right? One, reach out to us. We're always approachable. Anything digital in TVS ecosystem, and that's not limited to TVS Motor Company, the NBFC TVS Credit, or TVS Emerald, which is real estate, or Sundaran Clayton manufacturing, and so on and so forth, right? The cluster of TVS companies, feel free to reach out to me if there's any digital technology that you're using to solve for problems, right? And be happy to brainstorm and figure out how we can work together. That's on the TVS front. Second thing is, in my personal capacity, I have also been investing quite regularly now, and recently, coincidentally, I invested in a Kerala startup 2 months back. That was my first in Kerala. So happy to take a stab at it early on if you think that it makes sense from that perspective too. Thank you.
Yeah, so some tips to startups to collaborate. So firstly, I would like to say that because organizations, large corporates also engage with startups at multiple levels, right? Sometimes the R&D hand of the organization is involved in collaboration. Sometimes the corporate venturing office is involved directly. So it is very important for the startup to clarify the purpose of what is it that they expect. So if the purpose is just investment and things like that, I think you should look for opportunities where there are these hackathons and ideathons organized by the respective company which is aligned to your business case. So and if the intention is to kind of have the reach to the customers or the channel, and also sometimes be able to place your technology there. So I think you should have a different approach. You should probably collaborate with an R&D or a respective business unit that does that. So this clarity is utmost essential, because otherwise you'll be wasting a lot of time, both yours and the entity. So that is one. Second, but the most important point is focus, because you are so lean and you should not spread yourself thin. The focus is very important, the problem that you are solving, and importantly the technology. Sometimes problem is clear, but technology is not so clear. And in this age where there is so much of competition, right? In order to win, you would need that differentiator. But again, be sure that the differentiation is only to an extent that is needed, again, to be focused. So 95% accuracy in something is good enough. And if you want to take it to 96%, it doesn't add so much customer value, or it takes a lot of time, don't do it. So just stop there and quickly try to be rapid. I think that's an important thing. Yeah.
Yeah, to answer your question, and I agree with Vinoth as well, there are obviously, because there's a multiple layer of engagement processes involved with startups, I would say in your ideation stage, if that's what you're looking at, your incubators and accelerators are your best bet. Almost all corporates are also involved, whether it's at the central government level with the Ministry of IT, the MeitY Startup Hub, or like I said, the KSUM, or anybody else. If you're looking at something beyond, I would say, especially for Dell, where I mentioned the program itself, that's a great step in. Now, one advice that I would give is not restricting yourself to only pitching your product or the services or the solution itself, looking at networking. Because the more you're able to do so, the more you're able to bring that inroads into the company, you're able to actually identify what the needs of the company is. Therefore, your pitch will be better. Therefore, your ask itself perhaps would change completely. Maybe the partnership ask would be different. It could be, can you help us with scaling up the business? It may not be the infrastructure or the technology. Can you help us connect with investors? Can you help us with government? Can you help us with regulations? So there are various ways of doing it, but one of the biggest things to ensure that there is an inroad, do reach out to the Kerala startup mission. They are our conduit to all of you sitting here, especially the wonderful startups, and I'm sure we'll be able to figure out the road moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. So you've taken some of those broad messages. I think if you try to route some of your conversations through KSIM, because KSIM is already connected to all of them, it would be easier. But that doesn't stop you from reaching out to some of them, and use forums like these to reach out. We will sort of open it up for questions at this point. Let me apologize once more, and please take my word for it. On a normal day, I sound like Amitabh Bachchan. But I don't, today you just have to believe me that I sound like that on a different day. So if you have questions, for the questions you ask, please state your name, and if you have a specific speaker you want to get an answer from, you can mention that as well. Yeah. They're still relaxing from lunch and there. Yeah.
Sir, this is to Vinoth Kumar, sir. Do you endorse the view that collaboration completely alters the entire ecology of the ecosystem of the startup? Whether it completely alters collaboration, even what we understand from the basic of collaboration is that 4 eyes can see more than 2 eyes. So if a startup misses some point, some collaborating company will complement it. Do you think that in such a scenario, the collaboration creates a sort of alternative scenario of a new company ecosystem?
Sorry, may I confirm the question? The question is, when startup and a company is collaborating.
My basic premise is this: 4 eyes can see more than 2 eyes. Then if 2 startups collaborate, if one company misses an idea or one company misses some area, the other company fills it. Then the entire ecology of that startup is enhanced. Do you endorse that view?
Yes. So of course, so the way I would like to answer this question is, even in terms of customer value, right? Rather than working in silos, it is always better when you can bring more data, more applications, and then also enable this application to talk among themselves, right? So then only probably you get more value. So I'll again try to give an example. There is road, right? In road, there is a lot of traffic and related. So if the traffic department wants to keep that application only to themselves, and the startup which probably collaborated to make that, if the application is siloed, so there is a certain value only to that application. But if that same application is sharing information with other, other domains, so I think it will enable for more, kind of road creation, for traffic avoidance, for so and so forth. So I think you are right. It enables more and more new avenues.